back to another episode of the Ouroboros Express Devlogs. You have joined me with my friend Carrie Talbot. Hello, Carrie. Hi, I'll let you introduce yourself, but I will say that Carrie has been a brand new addition to the team on this iteration of the Ouroboros Express, and she has been absolutely fantastic. I can't wait for you guys to learn more from her and all the things that she's done on the project. But yes, Carrie, over to you. Would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you've done so far?
Sure, I can. Hey, I'm Carrie. Naj very kindly invited me to join Small Alone early this year to work on the new version of Oryx or Ouroboros Express. I'm a kind of newbie game writer this year. This was the year I decided I've got a background in writing and as a games journalist and things like that. English literature, but this was the year I woke up and went, I want to really be a games writer. Through the amazing Pixels game writing course, I went through
Cool.
the narrative department's masterclasses 1 and 2. I kind of speed ran my game writing
Yeah.
this year. And yeah, then I popped out the end and I joined a lot of other lovely TND folks and alumni here at Small Alone. And yeah, I've been working specifically mainly on some very cool new content in the game around the characters of Vivi and Urshu, along with Sarah, who is also a TND alum. And that's been really exciting. We've got to write all kinds of new, I don't want to spoil too much, but all kinds of new exciting content for them that kind of, I think, really enriches their characterization and the existing themes and stories that we have in the game that were already amazing. Yeah, it's been great.
Enriching is absolutely the right word to use. I'm so excited for people to see all the new stuff in the game. But for people who haven't played the game before, they're just gonna be like, yeah, this is totally it. And that's very cool too. This is totally the game. Yes. Yeah, it's wow, your story is very reminiscent of many of our friends that have come on this devlog before, actually. Yeah, I'm really interested to hear what made you do that deep dive into game writing and make that realization that you do want to be a game writer.
Yeah, sure. I think it's something that I've sort of semi-consciously had in my head since I was a kid. I've just been a game lover and a story lover since I was a child, and I think at some point the percolation just went, hey, do these things.
Yeah.
I think my first kind of foray into that was games journalism. Which I really enjoyed. I was a news editor at a site called PC Games Zen, and I've done a little bit of freelance on the side and that kind of thing. And I think I just gradually found that, I don't know, I was thinking with a different dimension to how I approached most of the games that I played. I was finding that I wasn't necessarily the kind of player that was thinking specifically about gameplay and that kind of fun aspect. It was more like, I want more dialogue.
Yeah. What does this character have to say about this particular thing?
I just want to have a half an hour cup of coffee with this character. That's fine for me. And I think when you play games that are extremely narrative rich, like Disco Elysium, which has a lot of written content, and just bask in it rather than feeling like you want to click through it. I think that story is what wakes you up in the morning and it's what makes you want to play games and derive a lot of joy from them. So yeah, I think I've wanted to do it for a few years, and I think this year I was like, I want to try and make that happen, because I think it's just an amazing dimension of games making, and I think it's developing all the time. We've got all these amazing new story rich games that are just like Baldur's Gate 3, for example, taking off to degrees that people who played CRPGs probably couldn't have imagined a few years ago.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm looking behind you, I can see The Witcher behind you as well, on top of Baldur's Gate. Yeah, I think we're getting a sense of your fandoms and what you're a part of. Yeah, I no, totally. That's a t-shirt right there, right? Story is what makes me wake up. It's what I wake up for in the morning, I totally agree, because I have a friend who plays games a lot. He, in the games that take me, maybe 8-10 hours to play, he'll play them in 2 hours, because he's like, I don't like cutscenes. I'm just gonna, could skip past every single one of them, and that's like unthinkable to me because I really want to know what's going on and get the context of what's happening in the game. So, truly, yes, I think if you are, if you are that kind of player, then I think game writing is, definitely going to appeal to you. Well, I mean, out of curiosity, is there a character in a game that you feel like didn't get enough screen time?
Gosh, if you know anything about me and you're about to find out, you'll know that one character jumps to mind, and that's the character Yorvith from The Witcher 2, who is
Oh,
my favorite game character of all time. He did not appear in The Witcher 3, which made me very sad. As I understand it, well, I don't know why. Hopefully, I think probably for very understandable reasons. He was clearly beloved by the studio, I think, in the way he's presented in The Witcher 2. He's always got the coolest intros, I think, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, they loved writing this character. I get this.
I love when you can tell that about a character.
Oh, I think so. It's like his intros are always so cinematic, and it's like, look at this cool dude, and I'm like, yes, yes. Yeah, no, he's fascinating just because I think he kind of embodies, I think, the most interesting things about game characters for me, which is they are, because especially if they're kind of NPCs,
Mm.
no matter how much you're allowed to plumb their depths, through dialogue and through backstory or, anything like that, or, by participating in or helping them with their current story as you play through the game.
Yes.
Because they're NPCs, they're always to some degree kind of unknowable.
Mm.
And I really feel like when CDPR crafted Yorvith, they kind of lent into that. They
Mm.
have these aspects of him that he'll reveal to some extent about his past. I mean, he's essentially like a guerrilla fighter or a freedom fighter, or depending on your view, he's a bit of a terror really to humans. He's an elven sort of guerrilla fighter, and yeah, they've really only given you snatches of him, and he only gives away tiny little aspects of his past, which, considering he's over a century old, is kind of fascinating. And you'll start to get to know him a bit, and then he'll kind of bring it back to the present, like, this is what needs to be done now and why. He won't let you into too personal.
Right.
And so, yeah, he's just fascinating. He wears these badges on his armor of, like, big foes that he's killed in the past, but you can't really ask about it,
Oh.
kind of thing. So, yeah, he's kind of bound up with mystery in a way that I find really tantalizing.
Yes, in a way, if he'd had any more screen time, the mystery just wouldn't be there, and I didn't, would you still be into him? I guess is the question.
I don't know. I don't know. I think
Maybe it's a mystery.
Yeah, he's a mystery. And I think what I love about the way that game works, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't played it. If you haven't, please play it. But the game essentially is in 3 acts, and the second act diverges almost entirely, depending on whether you choose to ally with him or with his rival. And if you ally with his rival, you get to hear a few rumors about him,
Mhm.
but he's like far away, and so he's kind of it's just fascinating. You hear these rumors about like how he sustained like an injury he has, for example. He sort of covers with a cowl an injury, like a very big scar that he has on his face.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear rumors about how he sustained that injury,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of mysterious. But they're all from like unreliable narrators, so you don't really know.
Okay.
And so it's this like little like, oh, who's that guy over there? Like, oh, he's
hearsay.
interesting. Go replay the game and you might find out. Yeah, it's
so
very interesting. So
yeah, I love that about game writing, when there is a sense of mystery about a place or a character, or even just the world itself. When thinking about like, say for example, like the Dark Souls or the Elden Ring games, nothing is ever really concrete. You just kind of build up this picture from picking up like lore and like talking to people.
yes.
And it sounds like this character is very much that as well, and it's so interesting because it really like hooks you, and it makes you want to really just kind of think of this character day in and day out, thinking, oh my god, what this mystery, and I love that curiosity factor as well. If you were to I guess like write a character for The Witcher, have you had any thoughts about like, if I was going to like, insert a character or like write a quest, like what would that look like?
Well, it's funny you ask. I actually wrote, part of my portfolio, I wrote like a quest pitch for The Witcher 2.
Amazing. Okay, I've asked the perfect question. Let's get into it. Let's go.
And I also wrote like a little branching twine conversation to like hopefully, showcase those skills that was based on that as well. So
Yeah.
I think it would be one of the sort of major backdrops of the game is that there's this huge battle that took place like something like 6 years beforehand. I think that's right. That was very much like against the northern realms versus Nilfgaard, which is this other, country, and the kind of the non-human part of the army, which were called like the Vriad Brigade, which this character Yorvith was a part of. And yeah, it's like a huge clash, and then the kind of the fallout of that kind of forms some of the kind of narrative foundations of the world in which it's set. And I thought it would always be interesting to write a character who has this kind of like ability to strike sparks kind of narratively and with the characters in the game.
Yeah.
I thought, wouldn't it be fun to write like a defector, like someone who fled from the battle, and so they're kind of, part of still the kind of maybe non-human kind that the human people in the Witcher world would have an issue with, but they also strike sparks with their kind of former allies as well. And I thought that would be interesting if someone like that kind of popped up and was there to kind of raise a few more grey areas and sort of probe sides a little bit, sort of prick Geralt's conscience a little bit, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we have been joined by Armoni. Hello. Hi.
Hello. Hi. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see your beautiful face, unfortunately.
Gosh, I don't know why it's not accepting me. Hold on. Take me in. Yeah, I'll make it work. Hold on. I gotta finesse the webcam. But how's everyone doing?
We're doing good. We were midway through Carrie's fascination with The Witcher and her dream quest to insert in there. Honestly, anytime there's something around like duty, our relationships with our past and our present and things like that, like I'm so into that, so I could totally see that being like an amazing thing to get into, because like there's that really amazing kind of like trope, I guess, where you have like, let's say like two brothers or two childhood friends and they find themselves on opposite sides of a conflict. That's
Absolutely.
always so interesting to get into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a shame my first thought was like Naruto versus Sasuke. And I was like, no. Not quite.
It's a classic. It's a classic. So we're going to let you work on your webcam a little bit. We'll just keep talking.
Yeah,
But
keep
as soon
going.
as your webcam is on, I'm gonna ask you to introduce yourself. But for now, you're going to be a mystery presence in the devlog for now. Okay, let's see. You might have to use a different browser, so you might have to come back in with a different browser. But in the meantime, yes, while we have this mystery presence, who's a friendly presence, not like a poltergeist or a ghost or whatever, it's a friend. Yeah, Casper, like Casper, the friendly ghost. Yeah, but yeah, I absolutely love that. I think conflict between people who were maybe originally very close and bonded, and then they find themselves between a rock and a hard place. So interesting. Are there like other tropes that you love and you like leaning into as far as like writing goes?
I think it's conflict is probably just the easiest way in for me. I find it easier to write, hopefully compelling dialogue and scenes that kind of revolve around some kind of element of like, this is gonna sound silly, and this might be a well-known thing, I don't know, but the way I like to think about crafting scenes and characters is I have this little rule for myself, which is this but that. So I kind of say, well, this character is dutiful, but here's the exception to that. And so it helps you to find that kind of like contrast point. And that's something, I mean, that sense of duty that you mentioned as well, that kind of conflict, that helped inspire me to write on the Ouroboros Express. I loved this idea of like, Urshu, he's kind of he's just the consummate professional in the game. The way you encounter him, he just, he never like really loses his rag or anything like that. Got the patience of a saint. He's been so many times before that, you just think he's done this 100 times before, and he'll do it 100 times more, I'm sure. And I really liked that sense of, looking at him and going, oh, what would push him over the edge though, or like where could that conflict or that contrast come from? And that's when Sarah and I kind of decided on this idea of we would enrich his and Vivi's story and connection by through the exchange of stories.
Mm-hmm.
We thought, well, there are like a few snatches in the base game of like references to Urshi's past.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of hinted at a sense of like conflict where he was torn between duty
Mm-hmm.
and his personal desires.
Yeah.
And so we were like, well, let's just like prod that a bit further and
Yeah.
clearer like what he lost and what he tried to gain by having like, compromised his sense of duty. And so yeah, that's something I took inspiration from these other games that I enjoy, and hopefully infused well into Ouroboros Express.
A masterful segue into the actual point of this devlog, because I was just gonna ask you about like various characters and things that you liked. Because that's what it always gets into when you have two game devs together. What games do you like? What would you do for that game? But yeah, speaking of a dear friend who's also a game dev, hello Armoni, how are you doing?
I have to reveal new challenger approaches. I'm doing pretty good. Talk with fellow devs on Ouroboros Express. It's really nice to get a chance to see what everyone else is playing and what everyone else is into. I feel like sometimes that's a really fun, totally different energy of a conversation than like, oh well, I worked on this, but like I tell you about the hundreds of hours I spent this game.
Oh yeah,
and
totally.
This hyperfixation
Absolutely.
led to the creation of this character.
Yeah, hyperfixation is absolutely right, and I have a feeling, Armoni, you have a few hyperfixations of your own. Would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your journey into the Ouroboros Express, as it were?
My ticket on the Ouroboros Express. It was just a normal Joe. Like many indie devs, I a lot of different things, and it's really hard to narrow in on something. So my journey with Small Loan started with Sandrit. Was just like, hey, I heard you make music, and like she's heard my music before, so I was like, okay, yeah, totally. Well, I can make something. And project, it was really fun. I think like I was also like in between moving, so I'm like sitting like a little gremlin on the floor. Recording all the SFX and doing all the synth stuff, and one fun thing was like having like an adaptive audio system, so every character had their own instrument, and it was just insane. So that was fun. What a time, what an experience. And then Ouroboros Express came along, and she was like, hey, and I'm like, all right, well, once again,
you got strong-armed in.
That's generally it. I keep telling, like, not for nothing. Generally, if you draw a circle on the floor and summon me, I'll come. I just don't know when here, but I'm here. I didn't think of myself as this really big synthesizer person, but like I am. I love it. I love the merging of very organic human or even folk sounds with different types of audio synthesis, whether it's just the distortion of it, time stretching it. Two sounds intersect. It's very, very, very fun. The vibe. So when I came on initially for the first patch of Ouroboros Express, it was like, hey, this folk song, Lavender Blue, and good ending and a bad ending depending on which route you go. So the good thing was organic. The musician Max, they're really, really cool. They out of the violin work we heard initially, it was like, well, like a good thing to like show off a bad ending. Like, so how can I distort it? So that's where I was coming from. I took Max's music, and like my hyperfixation at the time was my audio workstation. The time stretching. How do you cut out frequencies, delete them, make them sound like they're underwater, echo them, and a weird of my life this year has been just eldritch stuff, like whether it's another project I worked on, whether it's my own portfolio pieces, everything has an eldritch undertone. So I was like, maybe this was meant for me.
Everyone was like, Armoni, eldritch.
Honestly, if you see me as like an eldritch being, that's always a plus. Like, I feel like that's kind of tooting. That's a weird hair flip, but okay. But yeah, that was just like some of the biggest, the coolest things for me. So I had a really good time doing that and making the bad ending. Months later, you guys are really cooking with the game.
Yeah.
Carrie, you and the team updating all this, all the characters, all the writing, going absolutely off. Naj just going off as a director, and was like, we need more. And like, how much more do you need?
More.
So like more. Okay.
Oh,
So I no spoilers for the updated patch, but part of the addition was adding character-based scores.
yes.
Trying to, on a technical level, find out where that will fit because like there's just a lot more audio. There's more sounds going on here.
Yeah, absolutely more sound.
Got so
Yeah.
many sounds. Uh,
More dimension
more
to our
time.
storytelling.
Just it's a lot of that. So finding the character themes and what the project demands, character profiles dictate, and always threading in those fixations. I feel like those fixations make me human and make the work very human because I'm not going
Yeah.
to focus on this one thing forever. So
Mhm.
how can I weave it in and also fulfill the project brief at the same time? So
Yeah.
and on top of that, doing marketing stuff for SLS, which we can talk about. We don't have to. I feel like music is more fun.
Yes,
But
yes, yeah. Well, I mean, this is what a fantastic opportunity we have here. We have somebody on the writing team, somebody on the audio team, but ultimately it's about storytelling, just, through different channels, through different mediums. But I would love to talk about our boy Urshu. Urshu has come up quite a bit, and I want to ask you both, like, when on your both of your parts, like when it comes to storytelling for Urshu, what came to mind, and how did you approach, whether it was like writing Urshu's dialogue, or whether it was scoring for Urshu, and like, how do you approach that kind of challenge?
started without Carrie, like the foundation the writing team put. So please, Carrie, take it away.
I think for me, because yeah, writing had to come quite early on the project because we needed to lock the script in,
Mhm.
early-ish, like midway through, so that all of the audio team, Armoni, wonderful music, and the VO actors and things who are wonderful could all like do their stuff, and we could leave it alone. But the way I approached it really was just to saturate myself in Urshi's voice and to just play the game every which way that I could, and just to try and experience all of the, because I think this game, as much as many others that aren't strictly linear, you're not really experiencing a character, you're experiencing dimensions of a character. It's kind of a character verse in a way, isn't it? You're experiencing different shades of who that person can be in theory, depending on how you provoke them, or how you push them into certain, or you evoke certain things from them. And so I think it was really just trying to play the game several times to like reading the script again and again, and trying to almost say, I'm no actor, but trying to say the words out loud to myself, to be like, what's the lilt of his voice, how does he express himself, what kind of metaphors or similes or like phrases does he reach for typically,
Yeah.
try and find his like rhythm, I guess.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
I'm not a musician either, but there's that kind of lyrical kind of element to Urshu, I think.
Oh yes, and he's very musical in his dialogue as well. Yeah, definitely, much more so than some of our other characters.
Yeah, he's willing to take the extra minute to articulate himself with gusto. And I think I see his role more than maybe most of the others as a kind of performance. And I think there's that sense of, he's been doing this a long time, it's very practiced, so his speech seems very precise and thought through, because it's kind of almost rehearsed, I think. He'll have seen all kinds of shades of people coming through, the responses, fear, anger coming through the train many times. And so I think that was really my approach to it, was just trying to immerse myself in who the different dimensions of this character, or what the different dimensions of the character were, and then just trying to recreate that to do the original script justice while building on it. So yeah, it was just finding those patterns and trying to enrich it without changing it. So
What a
that's kind of my approach.
wonderful challenge to get dropped into. Our most, yeah, he'll take a minute or 20, to
He's got time.
hallucinate. And how about your body? So, like, having taken, with that as the foundation, how do you as interpret a character through sound?
Dug deep into the documentation. That's one thing I love about our team. The documentation is really robust. Like I'm out here back at the Miro board and like digging through the initial ideas, the initial thoughts. I didn't have music done for Urshu, but for like Susu, Darius, I have instrumentation, but if I were to do one for Urshu, like the process would start with that documentation. It starts with the character. These are really helpful because when I hear at least like this person's very calculated, like I wanted them to be that way, that would inform something like the meter, right? Like I was in strong contrast, the initial demo for Susu, it was because it was like based on and druids. I'm thinking like crazy polyrhythms. I'm thinking like experimental and just having a good time. It's like the episode in Avatar when Aang goes to the Fire Nation and is just like having a go. And I'm like, yeah, but that would not work for Urshu. Like something, it must be classical, very precise. And on top of that, I'm thinking about a user who, if someone's listening to this and over what Urshu's talking, like, okay, we kind of have to have something that isn't boring. So it would have to sound roundabout, it would have to sound precise. It wouldn't get too crazy with the effects synthesizers because again, it's like it sounds really manufactured and artificial. Like the things I'm thinking of, like how can this sound enhance the experience you're having with this character? How do you not get sick of hearing this? Let's say you go get a sandwich and then come back and like you aren't bothered by the music. Like what's the experience we're having here? Is there any way to really fulfill the core fantasy of like a lot of these characters' lineages? So like if we're dealing with Darius, it's like, okay, mind flayer, got to make sure this is otherworldly, spectral, evokes that feeling of awe and sublime based on like the size of the sound. But then with Asha, like that's a goddess, okay? Not only a goddess of light. So we need to have something that has ornaments and it's a bright sound, but it's again large. Not like thinking in darkness large, but wow, the sun is here. Like, okay, like I can bask in this sound. So these are like there's so many like weird little things here to really fulfill the core of the character. If someone is not introduced to this source material or hasn't played the game before, will they pick up on these themes initially? Like I think one thing we were all talking about a lot before was like one of the times earlier in the game when you meet everyone, these themes played like back to back, even just a bit of it, will you feel different for each one? Will that sound make you go, I like this one? Or you already know who you want to date and you're just like, this is what's coming with them? All right, bring it on. I love this. I love this too. 'Cause the last thing I would ever is, man, I love this character, but I don't like the music in the background. Like, no, I'm sorry, big dog. I'll do a better one next time. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the process. Very much sticking to the core of the character, the outsider think, and then again layering in whatever weird thing I'm into at the time.
Yeah.
Each one.
I love that the creative filter, because like we're ultimately just filtering in our, whatever creative input we're taking in and putting it into and reinterpreting it into this one thing, which becomes the Ouroboros Express and all the stuff that we contribute to it. And I love talking to people about, how they approach storytelling, because you guys are approaching it from totally different angles, but ultimately I think we're agreed on like, yes, he's, this and that and precise and, there's never a hair out of place and all of this stuff as well. And it's so wonderful to like see all of these interpretations and different dimensions of this character in different ways. And I think that's the really cool thing about interactive storytelling, right? There's like so many different ways to explore one character. And it's so interesting when that character isn't even like the playable character; they're like an NPC. So yeah, that's so great. And Armoni, I want to ask you about like your. So we talked about we touched on references a little bit. So, what are your favorite things to do to like top up your creative references when you're working on a project like this?
Watch an unholy amount of YouTube. Thoroughly, it's very bad. It's so bad. And what makes it worse is that I have an account that I've had since I started my first Gmail. So I have a decade and change of playlists and videos. I know for my art studio, I started a playlist just for research
Mm.
and dumping everything that inspires me, so I'll just play that randomly. There's an app called Obsidian, which I just, again, put all
Mm.
my references or thoughts or techniques in there. Arena,
Mm-hmm.
which is just
Mm.
like Pinterest, but for design nerds. So I'm like, if there was like a dragon horde, mine would just be knowledge, just books and random goofy things.
Yes.
Yes, Division.
Show me.
You want to
Dark
know?
internet. Yeah.
Uh, that's like oftentimes like that goes into like the research because there's always a reference of something that I can pull from there and then
Yeah.
applying that to what I like now or even just like games I enjoy. So as an example, about like let's say the three characters and their themes. It's like my strongest reference point right now. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for I enjoyed A3. Only assume what romance I went for and
We'll never guess.
guess.
We simply do not know.
No, you can't know. So unless you've played the game. That being said, that kind of informed like okay, the contrast of you're sinking in this well of darkness, but the darkness is holding you gingerly. Let's okay, how do you make that? How do you balance that? Being big but calming at the same time.
Yeah.
For Sasha, I think enjoy the human voice as an instrument.
Mm.
So a lot of recent things I was looking at was like, how do I remake voice sound, or how do I distort
Oh.
voices in Ableton? How do I really phonemes and like synthesis, like stuff like that. We're like getting in the weeds of a lot of these sounds and
Mm-hmm.
how do I hear them? How do I manipulate them? How do I like tonality, their texture? And then
Mm-hmm.
after all that's said and done, okay, now how do I make it bright? So
Yeah.
it's been a lot of just 'cause I love play. I think I enjoy play and
Mm.
experimentation, and sometimes I do need to scale back from play and like go to pure execution. So I
Mm.
was thoroughly done and
We
looking at
love a goof.
I live to goof. Eventually just finding those things. So yeah, I'm hoarding knowledge from YouTube. A lot of people are playing with voices. There was this one really cool thing that people did where, let's say there's a sound playing at 120 beats per minute.
Mm-hmm.
Have
Mm.
the same sound going at 121.
Mm-hmm.
Same sound going at 123. And if you play them all, they go out of sync and in sync, and it's hypnotic. And I'm like, let's add that in. Let's do
Oh.
that. So stuff like literally this that I live for my YouTube recommendations. I live for my synthesizers because I designed. Ugh, can I get it without destroying my whole setup? I designed this guy to basically work off of human input. So this one actually listens to the electricity on your skin, hold this down, and it can modify things like this piano and this one's a microphone. This is a theremin. So the idea of
So cool.
playing with organic input, all the weird methods to do so, hyperfixations, blur, living off that. But yeah, no, that
Yeah.
YouTube has just been one of my biggest things, collecting
Mm.
knowledge and
Mm.
always a fun reference to the things I enjoy on the day to day, like Baldur's Gate, the hundreds of hours. I
With
unfortunately.
and we'll never guess which romance he went with. We'll just never.
Oh, you
We
know
won't
what? Here's a
know.
worse answer.
Right.
This gets worse than that. I have 7 characters in that game, and each one was chosen for a specific romance. We have a Lae'zel, we have a Shadowheart, have a Will. I have a gaming
Mm.
spreadsheet. I have my bills, a character journals in
Mm.
each one. It's a problem. It is so bad. But I'll walk you guys through it one day because it actually is really fun.
This needs to be like a special episode, Armoni's gaming spreadsheet.
Trust me. It's true. Because the thing is, I also to keep track of all of it and cut me off if I'm like going off the trail. But
we
like
love this.
eventually like do is I'll have a character. So let's say I have a type of dwarf. It was the dwarves that live in the Underdark, and her sign is a romance for Will. But more importantly than that, I love the idea of like chaos magic. So she's a sorcerer who a barbarian and stacking the whole chaos field, whether I'm like going into enraged berserk mode or just straight up using random spells and turning into a chicken or whatever. But then into account, like the thing is, it was weird. None of the characters really no one was feeling me. Absolutely no one was feeling stuff for Will. And I was like, you know what? So character as that romance grew, the character of like the playing with the probability, playing with someone who is so like steadfast and grounded, like spoiler alert for the game that's been out for a long time. I'm so sorry, but there was a romance moment, and you could ask to kiss, and he was like, "No, I don't want to ruin it." And I was like, "Oh, so good." It was genuinely power. So I was like, and as I'm doing that, I'll write like character journals in the voice of the character. So I think a lot of us here, like with TND, like narrative department, whatever, and I'm writing in the voice of the character, and I'm writing like these moments in these scenes, and that also can go to like a different character. So the character that was for a specific mind flayer in the game, the idea of a Githyanki who is just an absolute traitor, but like the Warlock Githyanki, absolute traitor, who also started to romance Lenzel, but then traded to Shadowheart, but still into the Emperor. It is I weaved this web.
She is messy. Wow, that is fantastic. I mean, I love this. I really want to see this gaming spreadsheet at some point. But yeah, I mean, YouTube and all of these different sources. But like YouTube, and but all of these like the games that we play, they're gonna feed into our conscious, and they're gonna kind of like lie dormant there for a while until we draw on them for creating things they want to create. I mean, Carrie, over to you. Like, how do you top up your sort of like creative? Your vessel, I guess. Yeah.
I think just similar. I don't think I watch as much YouTube, but like I try to watch. I think I try to take that advice which you hear sometimes, I think, in the industry, which is you don't want to only play games and then make games. You kind of want to. I think what I just try to do is like, I'm not going to say I don't have days where I don't just like chill out and just don't. I watch something kind of mindlessly, but I always try to stay like sort of 20% switched on. I try to have like that particular part of my brain just kind of open. The door kind of open. So I could be watching like Succession or like a dumb YouTube video or just listening to music or anything.
Yeah.
And then just kind of have that little bit of your, that door just like a crack open in your brain and just let things wander in, because you never know where you're going to take inspiration from. And
Totally.
So just trying to remember that like genre boundaries seem harder than they are, I think, a lot of the time. And I think they can be softer if you think about what's really being said, which is, I'm not going to go on my big, I mean, you can probably see I love fantasy, but part of the reason I love fantasy so much, or like well done fantasy, I think, is because it's just such a powerful way of bringing these boundaries that I think that we think are very hard, and making them softer and like allowing a more neutral vehicle be like a really powerful proxy for exploring very human stories and very human experiences.
Yeah, definitely.
I think if you boil down things like, I don't know, The Witcher 2 or Baldur's Gate 3 or, The Lord of the Rings and things like that, if you boil it down to what they are, it's like prevailing themes in The Lord of the Rings, it's friendship. Trying to resist, I don't know, over-industrialization of, over more, natural existence. And, The Witcher 2, a lot of it is about betrayal and prejudice and things like that. And you can kind of... So I try to I try to keep that in mind whenever I'm watching anything. It can just be like TV that's like modern day, like I don't know, Succession, something like that. And just trying to be like, well, what are the human things happening here? And then how can we just let that permeate any other setting? And so that's kind of how I try to do it. Just keep that little.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I love that. I love it. And also, it's so delightful thinking of this like imagery of like this little like the door being open and things like wandering in, you know.
Yes. It's just like
That's so nice. I mean, what was the last thing that you guys maybe played or watched or consumed that really made you kind of like sit up and be like, oh my god, I have to pay attention. What is this? Like, what was the last thing that you guys remember doing that with, being like, oh, I must dig into this further?
5 of those at once, and it's like it's like per medium, which is a problem because I know I like doing different things. Like I like painting, I like making music, but it's like, all right, for television, we'll start with, if we have the time, television, and then we can like ping pong, carry back and forth with different things.
Yeah.
I think me and my wife watched the entirety of Community. It was such a strange show, but what I really appreciated about it, I don't know why I added an extra one. My brain just glitched. Was just, it was a celebration of the medium, and I think I do enjoy stories or pieces of work that really focus on the craft, or even just like a meta-analysis of the craft, and having people characters like Abed like dip in and out of like merging through reality and like what is shenanigans, but I'm the only one who sees the shenanigans. Was really fun for me because it also makes me think about shows, again, meta-analysis, whether it's like Deadpool, Wolverine, Everything Everywhere at Once, as an analysis of the multiverse. So all of those things, how do I look outside of myself in a given area? Can this character look outside of themselves? That's always just really, really it makes me, even with my stories and my writing, like, this character know, or because they don't know, can I give them flaws that helps that they have to fight to navigate? Like, I know that's a bad idea, and I know what can happen to you, but you don't, and that's the fun. So, that's mine. Ping pong, Carrie.
Yeah, over to you, Carrie.
Television-wise, I would say Severance.
Yeah.
Spoilers if you've not seen Severance, just say now. But like, I think that really made me sit up and pay attention because it confronted, I think, in the best way I think I can remember seeing in a television show, again, this kind of that idea I touched on earlier about how I love this idea of, like, particularly in games, you know, NPCs and characters can be very multifaceted and you experience different versions of them. And it kind of crossed over into that, which is like, it's really interesting to me. I loved that it explored this idea of, like, I think we, you know, as humans, I think we struggle with anything other than quite simple narratives that we kind of project onto the world. I think we do this through tropes in narrative. You know, we say the good guy, the bad guy, and you know, even when we're kind of exploring complexity, I think we're still kind of, like, a comfort zone does really tend us to kind of push people more into one or the other, so we kind of file them away. Or we know how to contextualize them then, and we know how to relate to them, and how much do I like them or dislike them. You kind of, you try to simplify things to kind of know what to do with them in your head, I think. And I really liked the way that show actually went, well, no person is one thing. There can be all these different versions of you who are pushed into a situation where you do something that, like, this version of you might think is unthinkable that you, as you understand yourself, would do. But then when there's this almost like hard partition and you're pushed into a different scenario, you behave differently and you're almost strangers to each other. And it explored that, and I just thought I was like, I've not seen anything explore this in this way before. That was fascinating to me because I was like, I really think that's true. I think most of us are many things that we don't think we are, but put in certain circumstances, we absolutely could be. And I think that's quite frightening.
It is,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of media grapples with that kind of, like, very stark reality.
You know, who could I have been in this particular situation, and with these resources or lack of, or, you know, it's really interesting to think about. And I think what you mentioned is about like everything everywhere all at once, like really made me think quite a lot about that as well. Like, you know, all the versions of the people we could be. And you know, it's so striking that one moment in the film where he's like, you're, you know, perfect for this thing because of all the times that you failed, you are a failure.
You're
You know, it's just
so
like,
bad.
wow,
You're so
you're
bad. It's
so bad at
good.
everything.
Yo,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But how many times have we felt, I mean, especially creative people, right? We're just like, we're constantly, I think being creative and like and being vulnerable enough to put stuff out there is like this constant work of being bad at something over and over again until you're kind of okay, like in your own eyes, you know.
Like,
It's so
if I ever
interesting.
get this.
Yeah, exactly. But like to other people, it's like the most amazing thing ever, and you're like, yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Normal, I
I'm
guess.
alright.
That's really critical, though. I mean, like, as that lesson
Mm,
goes, because
mm,
we're in something, or the work that we do is so iterative, and
yeah.
it's the part of, I think, the Dunning-Kruger effect, where it's like, it's so, it often feels like you're
Oh
at the bottom,
yes.
where it's like, this is so bad, and then you show it to someone, and everyone's like, dude, this is crazy good. And I think,
Yeah.
one, like, everyone's kind of hard on, we're all kind of hard on ourselves. The craft demands that you're iterative
Yeah.
and you prototype and you get your idea as fast out as possible so it can be refined.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's just like one thing I recently enjoyed, and I encourage everyone to really enjoy, is like sharing
Mm.
with people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Times my motivation is literally, I have to get this idea out to show my friends. Like, I gotta
Mm-hmm.
send this to the group chat. I gotta do something immediately. Like the other
Yeah.
day, I call with like Naj, Noah, and like the rest of the sound team, and I was playing with my
Mm.
synth, and I was just like speaking weird things into it. And there was a moment where I was like, "This is a test," and pop that in the chat because like that was exciting to me to actually like get motivated to do something cool. And Noah was like, "Whoa, this is wild." Then Naj was like, "This is a sleep paralysis demon," and I was like, "Gotta make one for Naj now." Just like dive right into it. So yeah, I do think motivation is really really fun because it's bad before it's good, which is weird.
Oh,
But that
it's so
sometimes comes with
true.
mastery because you're just like,
Yeah.
this could be so much better. But
Yeah, yeah. And that's the story of the Ouroboros Express actually, because we had our first iteration of this game, and then all of us was kind of collectively were like, we could do so much more. We could do so much more with this game. You know, and you know, hey, like more scenes, like voice acting just like tweaked, you know, existing scenes, just audio just being like just elevated to the next level. Yeah, I totally. I think that's the beauty of it. But also, there's something in like, where do I stop? Like, have you guys ever like struggled with being like, where do I stop? Like, how much longer do I want to work on this particular thing I'm obsessed about? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and Carrie,
Mm-hmm.
please cut me off at any point, please, because I can yell.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I think when to stop. That's why sometimes I prefer like a hard deadline, either whether I give it to myself or my like my
Yeah.
colleague gives me. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
just like we need this sound in by
Mm-hmm.
Friday. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
damn, okay, and then I'll work crazy on Thursday, and then it's done. But like
Yeah.
for completion, just since it's ravenous and it's not
Mm-hmm.
there until like the real world demands it, which I kind of think is,
Mm-hmm.
all right, if I'm gonna other side, maybe it's good
Mm-hmm.
because you're constantly trying to push it, you're trying to like tease the thing, squeeze as
Oh,
much juice from it, and like
totally. Yeah.
you're part of making work, right? It's kind of like this living thing, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you nurture it, but then it bites you, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like I like all of my artwork, if isolated, whatever, it never
Mm-hmm.
feels done
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
until I have to like the real world constraints say, hey, put it down, relax,
You
hey,
you need to
it's
relax.
cool. Like there's nothing else you can do. Or my logistics brain keeps kicking in. Like they're
Uh,
tweaking this thing, tweaking this one sentence, changing the loudness measure, it's not going to make a difference to
mm.
anyone but you, which was
Yeah, truly.
which is good in the beginning when
Yeah.
you're making something, when you're like from scratch. But
Yeah.
once you get to the end, it's like that's not going
Uh,
to make a difference. You have to go. let it go.
Yeah.
It has to
We
it has
have
to
to
graduate.
we have to move on. Yeah.
To move.
We have to deliver this baby. Like this baby is a full toddler. Like we need to
No
let
more
it go.
strollers. It has to run.
Yes.
Day.
Yeah.
I think consistent hunger, which
Yeah.
keeps me alive and human,
Yeah.
gets me up in the morning of like, I can't wait to tweak that one little thing.
Yeah.
A deadline. The real world keeps me in check.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Carrie? Like, be honest, how much were you working up until deadline on like any of the stuff that you've submitted?
Honestly, not close because I am an extremely like I get really like nervous that something is like I'm gonna get caught in like a tenable situation on deadline day. Like I'm gonna wake up and it like my house will have like done something terrible, like knocked me out of my study or something.
Right. Oh God.
And like I work very early, but I think I'm the same as you, Armoni. I think deadlines are really. I think many writers and creatives of any kind, I'm sure it's the same for you audio people, like it's like put it down, drop it,
Drop it.
like give it.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's what I've loved about working here so far is like it's a game production pipeline. The communication is really good, and so I'm like, you have that safety net of like, look, this is your deadline. Just get your script in so that we can do stuff and other people can do stuff and you're not blocking the pipeline.
Yeah.
But then there's going to be a QA period and then there'll be the sprint afterwards. You can go in and tweak stuff if you want before the script blocks and you're like, okay, this is like if I wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night and I'm like, I must change this adverb. I can. Second chance.
Yeah.
No, things like worry me.
Iteration.
I think that helps me like a hard deadline and then knowing there's like a little bit of wiggle room afterwards to be like like I have the space to do that, and so I try to work early and then I can let the perfectionism sort of run its course if I need to.
The monster, it's the perfectionism.
Yeah.
The beast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
For you being early. I'm sorry, Naj. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I mean, perfectionism is truly, it's really nice when you like get into the zone and you're like, oh, I prune this thing here, your little bonsai plant. you're like, oh, I'm gonna like take this leaf off here and I'm gonna put this here. But at a certain point, you just have to be like, okay, people need this now.
Yeah, like I don't know about you guys. I'm guessing it's very collaborative in the audio team, but I had a really lovely time working. With everyone, but in particular working with Sarah, who I worked on with the Vivian Urshi content, is we were working very closely together from the beginning. We were so on the same page. And then obviously like Tiago was brilliant at like guiding us and sort of going, yes, you've got this, like, helpful pointers, but like we felt very supported in our vision for it. And because we were working on it together.
Power team.
It felt very
100%
strong and knitted together from the beginning, which I think like helps you with that. Like you're not on your own being like, is this perfect? You're like, there's two of you going, I think it's perfect. Close to.
Good.
It's
Good enough.
So it helps, doesn't it, when you've got someone else to be like, am I going crazy? Or is this...
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's interesting. I'm really like, have you been finding it? Like, do you like working alone? Do you like being kind of like sheltered away in your little like bunker, or do you like bouncing off people? Like, what does that look like for you?
It's a mix. So I do like the idea of working alone. I in terms of not just as a creative person, but also just outside of that. I'm very much teaching myself and being a lot more comfortable with collaboration because when making work like years ago, or like as starting at work and taking myself seriously as an artist, made me feel like 3-4 different types of ways because sometimes the work doesn't feel distributed evenly, or you're not sure what you're contributing. So I had to I had my hermit era. I had my moment where it was just me, and I was able to make enough work to where this is mine. These are mine.
It's all me.
This is my set, but then also being like, hey, no, share, work with people, be better at being a team member. And I do like being a good team member. So as an example with audio, at this point in time, let's say we're giving me a week, I will
Mm-hmm.
spend a chunk of that week being isolated in my silo
Mm-hmm.
because I want to cook up the best thing I can for you in that given moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
learned
Mm-hmm.
over time to never give like not half-baked ideas, but just like, can I stand behind this? Like,
Yeah.
thing I tried to do is I never tried to downplay what I'm doing or downplay as an introduction to what you're about to see. I let you have
Uh,
it. I It's the worst thing I've ever made, but you don't need to know
mm-hmm.
that. I want to hear you say it before you really like jump down my throat. But it's something to the best of your ability with what you have,
Yeah.
being excited to share it. Like the and the flip side, like with the this is a test thing, like I was
Yeah.
like, man, I am so excited for how Noah's gonna react to this. Like I really want everyone to hear, and even not just the audio team, just everyone, because like our
Yeah.
obviously our comms, everyone can hop in at any point. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone
Mm-hmm.
can look in. I appreciate anyone's perspective and use it as direction because
Mm-hmm.
I like inviting people is because choice defines the art, the artistic
Mm-hmm.
choices you make, the logistical choices. So
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
have more people in here and like we're
Yeah.
democratically going, I don't know, or you know what, this is too busy, and we all agree, then
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. Like, or and pushing myself to not care. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do what's best for the project and what's good
Yeah.
for development, and let's move that. Like, there was another game jam we did in Smallholm
Mm-hmm.
where, like,
Mm-hmm.
a very big part of that was like I was doing some of the character designs, and it could have
Mm-hmm.
gone any way, but because the group wanted
Mm-hmm.
it something a bit more vibrant and happy, and the meter here, like all of these things,
Yeah.
makes it work. So I like being in my bunker. Let me cook.
Mm.
Literally, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the one sentence. Let me cook, but
Let me cook. Yeah.
taste this.
Yes, that's such a great point. Like I think, that's a really important lesson for people when you are trying to work with other people. Like don't downplay your work. The person on the other side, 9 times out of 10, doesn't really know whether you think it's good or bad until you tell them and you can telegraph that to them. And and I think that really applies to like anything, whether it's like writing or audio or art. You just present the thing, right? Don't try and guess what the other person is going to think about it. They'll tell you. That's why I think you guys are such a great team, because you're all so creatively like mature in that way. Like consistently, every single person in this team has been like, yeah, I want to make this thing, and I'm so happy to take on feedback. Every bit of feedback is a gift. I'm like, you guys, you. Yo, all of you are so good. It's so good. They're really cooking. I
Great.
can't.
Yes, yes.
Yes. But yeah, you have been so. Everybody in this team that I've talked to, like, everyone's just like, hey, yeah, I made this thing, and you guys always present like the thought process, which is also again a really important thing for like creatives to learn how to do and articulate that. But I think the even better part is that you're like, well, I'm open to suggestions, and like I really want to hear like what you have to say about it. And that's been so special to see. And it's not like just for me, but like you guys like working amongst each other as well. Like Carrie, I could, I can only imagine like the conversations you were having with Sarah about like, teaming up with writing Urshu. Like, what did those like feedback sessions look like when you were kind of bouncing ideas off each other?
It's more kind of, it was in the planning stages that we kind of worked closest together. And I think, there was just like a lot of consideration of like, what are the key themes that we want to tease out here and that kind of thing. And yeah, it was just looking really at like, how do we take what's here? There's so much good stuff here. We just want to like add more flavor, to extend that cooking theme. We're just going to add more flavor and
Yes.
depth to it, serve it up, and everyone can.
We have indeed done that. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Some stars. Get ready.
But it's been a joint effort as well, I think, with the whole team. I think what's so lovely about like working here is like, I guess as you've both like touched on, is like everyone is so willing to not only receive the feedback, but to like chime in. It's lovely to see people hopping into like the art channel, the audio channel, and being like, I know you don't need my approval, but this is crazy. What is what I really like this, new character art or something,
Yeah.
It's wonderful, because I think, particularly as this is a gameplay light and story rich game. And I think so we really are all pointed towards telling and enriching a story
Yeah.
to a much greater degree than I think we would be if we were working in a slightly different gameplay genre. And I think that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was wonderful to have sessions, for example, where we got to speak with the voice actors because, you know, then they got to give us their take on these characters. And we're like, yeah, that's really valuable for us to think about too. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you receive these lines that have just been given to you?
Yeah.
People you don't know, and then you're
Yeah.
bringing it to life as well. And it's just, yeah, it's all of those different facets of storytelling all working together. It's been really lovely to be a part of.
Creative feedback. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna ask you guys one last question because I love yapping, as you guys know. But we do have to move on with our lives, and I do have to eat dinner, and it's so sad. So if I could ask, pose a question to you guys, what is one thing that you would tell yourself a year ago with regards to your game dev journey?
Just, it's honestly, it's a lesson that I've taken from like the narrative department's masterclass. It's just get stuff out there and put it in front of people early.
Yes.
I build such big walls in my head of like, I have to be perfect before I put anything in front of anyone. And that's something I overcame in a different kind of writing because obviously I was a news journalist and then a news editor. And so I developed a thick skin, writing many articles a day, putting it in front of other people and then putting it in front of the world. But creative writing is very different and it feels very much more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think we all, as I do, I think we build up this like, it has to be like this good before anyone can see it. And, you know, as like, you know, Susan, our amazing tutor on the game writing masterclass, used to say, just get work in front of people and get it in front of them early, because I think not only is it important for everyone else, but it just builds confidence bit by bit. And I couldn't have dreamed this time last year that I would have been this confident just being like, here's a portfolio, this is public. Anyone, here's my game writing, this is me, this is the best I can do currently. And then, as you say, not saying this is terrible, but just being like, here it is, you receive it.
Yeah.
I couldn't have dreamed that I would be confident doing that a year ago, and now I'm just like, yep, it's fine, it's okay.
Wow,
So,
that's
what I
so
would say.
cool.
That's real.
That's so cool. How about you, Armoni? What's something you would tell yourself a year ago?
For you,
Oh yes.
I had to. I like different art forms and different themes, and like there was a moment, and in pure honesty, my brain was like, we're gonna get into game dev, we're gonna take this master class, we're gonna be a game writer, we're gonna do everything. This is my life now. And then as the industry works, as a development as an art form, it pushed that for me, but it comes down to do it for me because I'm not motivated to do it for a job because there are no jobs. So I kind of had to just do the stuff because I enjoyed it. Like I enjoy working with my friends, or I enjoy making really weird and interesting things. We're in such a strange time and context as this, where the art isn't made by people, the jobs, doing that's for you. And I would have done it for me. I would have hopped into Unreal or something purely out of like nerdy intrigue versus being to hop in the engine because of someone not accepting me, or like if I start now I can't get a job because I need 5 years of experience in Unreal. Like for you, doing your own weird niche specific things, but really puts the work in your bones. It makes you want to do better, and that's also the marker of like the creative feedback and growth, where it's like at it, I enjoy it, I want to be with other people who enjoy it, I want to give them something that makes them go wow, right? Like if anything, just do it for you. So if you want to play with audio, do it because you want to do it. If you want to write, do it. And like with the master class, it also taught us to just make things really quick. When I first took the master class, I was in New Zealand.
Oh my gosh.
I was up at like
out here having second breakfast.
Right? So the other hobbits at 6 a.m. video call with Susan and Co. doing my homework. I don't think anyone would do that purely for the sake of it. I mean, one could if they're like dedicated and hungry, but like doing it for you is so much more fun. It's so much more
So true.
fulfilling because in
It's
the
so
end,
true.
all the knowledge and all these connections and the people we made, like it
Mm.
feels, it also, I'm gonna keep on going. I'm so sorry, but it also feels
Okay.
like these connections feel better. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's the
truly.
middle of a work day. Like I'm having so much more fun here talking with y'all about games and being a complete nerd. Don't tell my boss. But
Yeah,
like
we're nerding about creativity.
that's
We'll never snitch.
much
Yeah.
more fulfilling in my life. Like I can
Yeah.
thoroughly like
Yeah.
go to bed tonight and be like,
Mm.
yo, today was it was I had my action for the that was more worthwhile than anything. So yeah, remember to do it. Tick, delicious. Please do
Wait.
all of this for you and your excitement because that's kind of what
Yeah.
the world needs.
100%. Yeah. I mean, what powerful lessons here. Put your work out there as soon as possible and do it for you. I couldn't have said it any better myself. I think also, I think there's something there like that ties these things together, which is about creative intention. Because I feel like we've watched media and it feels very cynical and it feels very clear what the intention of this, which was not the most intrinsically like creative, but it's like monetary in value. And I think it's really important to do it for you and find the authenticity in that and put it out there. So which is exactly what you guys have been doing for the Ouroboros Express, and I couldn't be more grateful. Check out that segue. Oh my god.
Excited. That was clean.
Um,
That was clean.
masterful.
Oh gosh. Oh,
Well, sadly, we're going to have to say goodbye to you both, but hopefully we'll see you around very soon for a future episode. But yes, thank you so much, guys. Well, before we go, please tell our audience where can they find you online on the internet.
all right. I can go first, Carrie.
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just search my name, I guess. And also, I have a personal website, which is carrietalbot.com.
Very easy. How about you, Armoni?
I'm Armoni Boone on LinkedIn. If you want to see a lot of my other work, you can check out my art studio at monihym.com, monihymn.com. Instagram at I'm Armoni, im.armoni. So,
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me, guys. All right, it's time to say goodbye. Goodbye. Bye, fellow passengers.
buddy.
Bye-bye.